I agree with that. So you think that Iran is relatively going to be put on the back burner and that the real conflict may be in Pakistan? I hope you're wrong. I hope that installing a new dictator will at least, wave that off. I figured that's what they were trying to do it diplomatically. But the rhetoric is there. I mean, they're talking about them being the new big enemy, and I think that just one type of terror event, either here or in Europe, being blamed on Pakistan, could be the catalyst to send, our forces or NATO forces or UN forces in there, and that would be a total and complete nightmare. That might be... most people were saying the Iran conflict was what was going to spark, World War III, but a conflict with Pakistan could very well do the same.
You're absolutely correct here. And the issue here isn't whether we want to go into Iran or we want to go into Pakistan. There are numerous players and numerous factions, and each has their own agenda. Israel still wants us to attack Iran. The U.S., I think, has decided they can't do it because they can't keep Russia from intervening militarily. So now they're looking at Pakistan, if for no other reason than to block off China's access to Middle Eastern oil and force them to come do business with the United States for their petroleum. And, again, it's that chessboard around the oil fields that's really in play.
Do you think that Russia is unhappy with its place in the world? I mean, obviously there was a play, like you said, in that South Ossetia-Georgian conflict to see what kind of a world power they still were. Do you feel like they feel like they don't want to be a second world nation in this global order? I mean, that's how I feel like the play is. I mean, you had Putin and Bush sitting next to each other at the Olympics as this conflict's going on. I don't think that Putin is very happy with the way that he was treated, and I don't think that he's very happy with, the U.S. basically trying to build the North American Union here at home, and I really do believe trying to build a Eurasian Union right around the corner from their home.
Well, I don't think it's a question of whether Russia wants to be number one or number two. I think Russia, certainly looking at what Putin was doing right after he got rid of the oligarchs, I think he wants peace and prosperity for his people because his own political fortunes are dependent on that. But he lives, unfortunately, in a time when there are some very belligerent nations who see their own fortunes greatly improved by major warfare. I mean, setting aside for the moment Israel's obvious push for war in Lebanon, war in Iran, war against Syria, war against Jordan, the list goes on. We have in the United States a large number of people who are looking at our economic problems and thinking that a major war at least will disguise the symptoms, give them something to blame it all on. I mean, Americans will put up with lack of food, lack of clothes, lack of fuel if they think there's a war going on and they have to rally around the flag. And if you look back at the history of America's participation in major wars, each one happened just as the United States was dealing with a major depression. There was a depression in the early 1900s. We got out of that by going into World War I. With that whole deception over the Lusitania. We were in the Great Depression just before Roosevelt got us into World War II with the Pearl Harbor deception. So now we're in serious economic trouble. People are saying this is a new depression. And sure enough, we have the U.S. government that's out there saying, let's kick off a major war and crank up the defense industries and make bombs and just, at least everybody will be distracted from how bad things are because there's a war on and we've got to rally around the flag. And I think that's their thinking. And it's not going to work this time because first of all, because of the alternative media, the American people know they're being lied to about these situations. They're not going to trust the government's story about any new war. Second of all, the United States is not the industrial powerhouse it was for World War I and World War II. We can't sustain the kind of manufacturing output it takes to support a major global war. And our economy is already in a shambles. I think a new major war will be the end of the United States.
I agree with you, and I think what it'll do is restructure us, Canada, and Mexico together. My fear is, all right, let's say that the dollar totally and completely collapses in the next 6 months, and it's no longer the world reserve currency. That alone could probably start some real military conflicts. And like you said, we don't have the factories that we once had. We can't just take a factory and take the workers there and suspend whatever product they were making because they don't make anything here anymore. You can't make weapons in a factory that's not fit to make shoes because we don't make anything. The last thing we made here were cars, and that's about to go under as well. I mean, we're spread so thin militarily. Is this going to be like the first United States military defeat? I mean, people could argue Vietnam and everything, but I'm talking about on a global scale.
I think it very well could be because if you look at the historical precedent for the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, Rome began to decline when they spread their legions so thin they only had to lose one up in Germany, and then they could no longer police their global empire, and the little fringe nations began breaking away, and the revenues to Rome dropped, and Rome sank into debt and collapsed.
Unbelievable. It's the Alex Jones Show. We're talking with Mike Rivero of WhatReallyHappened.com. We're going to be talking the economy and Obama and more. Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done has been right.
Folks, we are upping the game over at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. We are streaming live at least 2 hours of video right now, actually. So you can not only listen to us through our great AM and FM affiliates, GCN, but PrisonPlanet.tv, you can actually see my pretty face and, of course, Mike Rivero's on the cam. We're going to take your calls after this segment. Let's try to keep it on topic. I'd appreciate if we could keep away from the spooky hand signals and the race wars. Some people, man, I mean, they're just unbelievable. We got real issues to talk about here. We got a new administration coming in 6 days. We've got people like Colin Powell, Joe Biden, and Madeleine Albright all warning us about a crisis. Now, at first, I didn't give much credence to this. I thought it was political rhetoric, especially on Biden's part, to try to get him elected. And I didn't take much stock in what Albright said. But when Colin Powell gave a date of the 21st or 22nd, it definitely spooked me out. Some people have tried to point to the fact that he said that before the economic crisis hit television, but I don't know. Do you give any credence to that, Mike? Do you think that there's going to be something coming up on the 21st or 22nd? I mean, it could just be the announcement of more bank collapses. Who knows?
I'm very hesitant to name a date like the 20th or the 21st. Mm-hmm. And again, this gets back to the comment about so many different factions right now, each pushing their own agenda. And I am certain that there are some people who are thinking that a new 9/11 is going to advance their particular situation. They are being balanced by, I hope, a larger majority who are saying that the American people are already suspicious of the first 9/11, and a second one is going to be a very reckless and very dangerous and risky proposition. But again, it's not like the government is operating in a united, monolithic sense. There's a lot of different players, and they're all doing what they think is going to be in their own best interests.
I agree with you there. And, people say, well, why do you keep bringing up 9/11? It's because the mainstream media constantly brings up 9/11. Today on Fox News, FoxNews.com admitted that they torture people at Guantanamo Bay, but of course the guy they were torturing was a suspect in the 9/11 attacks, and he later confessed that he was involved. So it's okay, and it just blows my mind. And even
I love it. It's we've tortured him into confessing, therefore it must be true.
And then you've had those military tribunals that have made the news in the past couple months of these supposed 9/11 suspects outside of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Of course, we're never going. We'll see nothing more than transcripts about that, and people will buy into it. Mickey Rourke just won the Golden Globe for The Wrestler. I actually watched it. I liked the movie. I think he actually might even deserve an Oscar for it. But then he gets interviewed, and what's the headline? It's not, Mickey Rourke wins the Golden Globe. No, Mickey Rourke says Bush did the right thing after 9/11 to the terrorists. Of course, Mickey Rourke is going to weigh in. And the sad thing is, Mike, more people are going to listen to him because he's in the movies and on television than are going to listen to you or me, because that's the kind of society we live in.
Well, I think that was the conventional wisdom a long time ago, but I'm not certain that's true anymore. First of all, because I think thanks be to people like Paris Hilton and her ilk, people are realizing that celebrities may look very good and make a very hot weekend, but they're not necessarily really up to date on what's going on. And to balance them, of course, you have people like Charlie Sheen and Willie Nelson and Rosie O'Donnell, who have laid their careers on the line to speak truth to power. And these are being viewed as modern-day heroes and heroines. And so I think Mickey Rourke may ultimately, in the long run, have marginalized himself with that comment.
Well, I hope you're right. But, it leads me to the sheeple-like mentality of people that, they're more interested. I mean, Paris Hilton can have how many, like 6 or 7 reality shows, and people still tune in. She still makes money on television just being her regular idiotic self, and people worship that and glorify it. And I think that's why we're in the situation we are with the banks, in the Middle East is because people aren't paying attention. I was impressed that most people weren't for the bailout, but, when I'd be in a bar and I'd be talking to, the local, Republican business owner, oh no, man, if we don't have this bailout, we're going to go under. It's explaining every single great thing about the bailout that the news media was using as talking points 3 months ago. And now when the news media says, oh my God, we're in the worst economic situation since the Great Depression, they're still saying, well, we need another bailout. That's what the news told me. We need another bailout. How are we going to get past that?
To take a look at gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low return on your paper investments. Call 800-686-2237. Make sure that you secure your future. Call 800-686-2237. That's 1-800-686-2237.